The man who did not run. The Valley of Ashfall had not always been a grave. There had been a time long before memory, before maps, before the fearful stories whispered around dim fires when it had been green. Rivers had once cut silver paths through its soil, feeding forests so thick that sunlight struggled to reach the ground. Birds had filled the sky, herds had crossed its plains. Life had been abundant, vibrant, and loud. Then the dragons came. Or perhaps they had always been there. No one could say for certain anymore. What remained was ash. The earth itself had been burned into submission, hardened into black glass in some places, shattered into brittle gray dust in others. Trees stood frozen in their last moments, twisted and hollow, their branches clawing upward as if begging the sky for mercy that never came. The wind carried whispers, not voices, not truly, but a sound like distant sighs, like something remembering pain. Men did not come to Ashfall for beauty. They came for profit. Even then, only the desperate or the foolish dared to cross its borders. The valley was said to be cursed, haunted by remnants of ancient power. Strange lights appeared at night. Shadows moved against the wind. Sometimes those who entered simply did not return. And those who did rarely spoke of what they saw. Kael'Varin walked through the valley as if it were nothing more than another stretch of road. His boots crushed ash with each step, leaving shallow prints that the wind erased almost immediately. He wore no crest, no banner, nothing to mark allegiance or profession. His armor was mismatched, pieces gathered from different times, different battles, repaired more than once, worn thin in places. His cloak, once dark, had faded into a dull gray that blended with the land. He moved like a man who had learned not to waste energy. Every step was measured, every breath controlled. And yet there was something else about him, something quieter, harder to define. He did not look around in fear. He did not glance over his shoulder. He simply walked forward. Because he had somewhere to be. Or perhaps because he had nowhere else left to go. The wind shifted. Kael paused. It was not the sound that made him stop, not at first, but the absence of it. The valley was never truly silent. Even in its dead state it breathed, the wind whispered, ash shifted, distant cracks echoed through cooling stone. But now, there was a break in that rhythm. A disturbance. He tilted his head slightly, listening. And then he heard it. A cry, high-pitched, sharp, trembling. Young. Kael's hand moved instinctively, settling on the hilt of his sword. The leather grip was familiar beneath his fingers, worn smooth by years of use. He did not draw it. Not yet. He listened again. The cry came a second time, thinner now, weaker, but unmistakable. Not humans. But not prey either. There was a difference. Kael had spent enough years on battlefields and broken roads to know it. The cries of prey were frantic, desperate in a way that scattered, that lacked focus. This sound was something else. Cornered. Contained. Hunted. He exhaled slowly, his gaze lifting toward the jagged ridges ahead. This was not his concern. It should not be. Ashfall was full of dangers. Creatures twisted by old magic, remnants of things better left buried, men who had traded morality for coin or survival. Getting involved meant risk. Risk meant injury. Or worse, he had survived this long by choosing his fights carefully. By walking away when necessary. By understanding that not every battle needed to be his. The cry came again. Weaker. Closer to breaking. Kael closed his eyes for a brief moment. Then he opened them. Damn it, he muttered under his breaths. He moved. Not quickly, not recklessly, but with purpose. His steps became lighter, quieter, as he angled toward the source of the sound. He kept low, using the terrain to his advantage, weaving between jagged outcroppings of blackened stone. The ground dipped ahead, forming a shallow basin, a hollow carved by ancient flame and time. The edges were sharp, almost glass-like in places, reflecting the dim gray sky. Kael slowed as he approached the ridge. Carefully he crouched, lowering himself just enough to see over the edge. And then he understood. 5 figures stood within the hollow. They formed a loose circle, their positions deliberate, calculated. Each one held a weapon, swords, axes, a spear, all crafted with purpose. Their armor was dark, almost black, but not dull. Runes etched across its surface shimmered faintly, glowing with a low red light that pulsed like embers. Kael's eyes narrowed. Dragon slayers. Not amateurs, not scavengers pretending at danger. These were professionals. The runes on their armor were designed to resist heat, to deflect flame. Their weapons were treated, alchemically enhanced to pierce scales to disrupt the natural resilience of draconic flesh. They were here for one reason, and they had found it. At the center of their circle stood a small creature. It was no larger than a large hound, its body low to the ground, wings tucked tight against its sides. Its scales were pale gold, not the bright, radiant hue of a fully grown dragon but softer, almost translucent in places. Even under the dim, ashen light they shimmered faintly, catching what little illumination there was. A hatchling. Its wing left side was torn, not severed but badly damaged, the membrane split and darkened with drying blood. It shifted its weight unevenly, favoring one side, struggling to maintain balance. It hissed. The sound was weak. More defiance than threat. Its head lifted, jaws parting to reveal small, sharp teeth. A flicker of heat shimmered at the back of its throat, but no flame came. It was too young, too injured. Too alone. Worth a fortune alive, one of the hunters said. His voice was casual, almost bored, as if discussing the quality of a blade rather than a living creature. Or dead, another added. Alive pays more. Dead is easier. A third hunter stepped forward slightly, adjusting his grip on a hooked spear. Wing, already damaged, won't fly, won't run far. The hatchling shifted, its claws scraping against the blackened ground. It tried to make itself larger, wings spreading slightly, head lifting higher. It might have been impressive if it had been grown. Now it was only tragic. Kale watched in silence, his mind already calculating. 5 opponents. All trained. All equipped specifically for this kind of hunt. The terrain favored them. Open ground, no cover for the creature, limited space for movement. The hatchling had no chance. And neither would he. He could turn away. Leave. It would be the smart choice. The correct choice. He had no contract here, no obligation, no reason to intervene. This was not his fight. The hunters shifted slightly, tightening their circle. One stepped closer. The hatchling stumbled back, its injured wing dragging against the ground. It let out another cry, sharper this time, edged with panic. It slipped, fell, scrabbled against the ash, trying to rise. One of the hunters laughed. Pathetic. The hatchling's head snapped up. And for a moment, just a moment, its eyes met Kale's. He froze. They were not what he expected. Not filled with rage. Not burning with ancient pride. There was no challenge in them. No threat. Only fear. Raw, unfiltered, childlike. Kale exhaled slowly. His hand tightened on the hilt of his sword. He had seen that look before. On battlefields. In villages caught between armies. In the eyes of those who knew they were about to die and could do nothing to stop it. He looked away. For a heartbeat he considered stepping back, leaving the ridge, walking away. He could still do it. He should. Instead he stood. Ash shifted beneath his boots as he stepped forward, descending into the hollow without haste, without hesitation. The sound drew attention immediately. The hunters turned, weapons lifting instinctively, their formation adjusting. Kale stopped a short distance away, placing himself between them and the hatchling. Not directly in front of it, not yet, but close enough. 5 of you, he said. His voice was calm. Steady. It carried easily across the hollow. For a child. One of the hunters tilted his head, studying him. Then he laughed. The others followed. And one fool to join it, the man replied. Another hunter stepped forward, resting his weapon on his shoulder. You lost, traveler. Kale shook his head slightly. No, he drew his sword. The sound of steel sliding free of its sheath cut cleanly through the air. I think I found exactly what I was looking for. The hunters spread out slightly, adjusting their positions. The circle widened, but not enough to give space, just enough to include him. Walk away, one of them said, last chance. Kale rolled his shoulder once, loosening it. I was about to say the same thing. A pause. Then, movement. The first hunter lunged. Vast, faster than most men. His blade came in low, aiming for Kale's side, a killing strike designed to open him up, to end the fight before it began. Kale moved. Not backward. Forward. He stepped into the attack, twisting his body just enough for the blade to graze instead of pierce. Steel bit into his side, slicing through cloth and skin, drawing blood, but missing anything vital. His sword came up in the same motion. One strike. Clean. Precise. The hunter's throat opened. He fell without a sound. The others did not hesitate. They attacked together. The second blade struck his shoulder deep, driving through armor and muscle. Pain flared, sharp and immediate, but Kale did not stop. He turned into it, closing distance, his own blade punching through the attacker's chest. The third came from behind. Kale twisted, but not enough. Steel drove into his thigh. His leg buckled. He caught himself. Did not fall. He swung backward blindly but accurately. His blade connected, biting into flesh, forcing the attacker to stagger away. The fourth strike hit his back. Armor cracked. Breath left him in a sharp exhale. He moved anyway. He had to. Stopping meant death. He stepped between the hunters and the hatchling, placing himself fully in their path now. The small creature huddled behind him, its breath coming in quick, shallow bursts. It tried to move. To crawl. Kale shifted, blocking the path of another strike meant for it. Steel met steel. Then flesh. He grunted as another blade found him, slicing across his ribs. Blood soaked into his clothing. The world narrowed. Pain became everything and nothing. He focused. One movement at a time. One strike. One step. The hunters pressed in, relentless. They were trained for this, to overwhelm, to outlast, to kill creatures far larger and more dangerous than a single man. Kale was neither larger nor more dangerous. But he was stubborn, and he refused to move. The hatchling cried out behind him, trying to drag itself away, its claws scraping uselessly against the ground. Kale stepped back. Then again. Adjusting. Positioning. Always between them. Always in the way. A blade came for the hatchling's head. Kale intercepted it. Another aimed for its body. He took that one on his arm. Another, his side. Another, his back. He did not count the strikes. He did not have the luxury. But they added up. Weight, damage, blood loss. His movement slowed. Just slightly. Enough. The final hunter stepped in. He had waited. Watched. Patient. His blade was longer than the others, narrower, a weapon designed to pierce, not cleave. It slid forward with precision. No wasted motion. No hesitation. Kale saw it coming. He tried to move. Too slow. The blade entered his chest. Clean. Straight through. It drove deep, the force behind it carrying the steel out his back. The world stopped. Sound faded. Kale looked down. At the blade. At the blood. Then up. The hunter met his gaze. Cold. Professional. Certain. Kale smiled. It was a small thing. Barely there. But real. Run, he whispered. The word was not for the man in front of him. It was for the creature behind him. The hatchling. It hesitated. Just for a second. Then, it moved. Clumsy. Unsteady. But moving. Away. Kale exhaled. The hunter pulled the blade free. Pain flared bright, blinding, then faded. Kale's knees gave out. He fell. The ash rose around him, soft and silent, as if the valley itself had been waiting to catch him. The sky above was gray. Endless. Empty. He stared at it, his vision blurring. Distantly, he heard the hunters shouting. He heard the hatchlings retreat. He heard nothing. His breath slowed, then stopped. And in the stillness of ashfall, the man who did not run finally fell. The fire that answers. Darkness did not take him. Not fully. It came close, closer than breath, closer than thought, but it did not claim him. Kael'Varin drifted in a place that was neither life nor death. It was not the void he had expected, not the quiet nothingness that swallowed the fallen. There was no peace here, no final stillness. There was weight. There was memory, and there was pain. It lingered sharp and distant at the same time, as if it no longer belonged to him yet refused to leave. He could feel it in echoes, the bite of steel, the tearing of flesh, the crushing force of impact. Each wound existed as a fatting imprint, like scars burned into something deeper than skin. But beneath it, there was something else. Heat. At first it was faint, a flicker, a dying ember buried under ash, easy to ignore. Easy to mistake. But it did not fade. It grew, slowly, steadily. It spread through the emptiness, seeping into the places where the cold had settled. It did not burn in the way Kale understood fire. There was no destruction in it, no hunger. It was alive. The heat coiled around him, gentle at first, like a cautious touch. Then firmer. Aware, Kale tried to breathe. For a moment, he did not know how. His chest did not rise, his lungs did not fill. The instinct was there, the memory of breath, but the body did not answer. Not yet. He floated, suspended between something and nothing. And then, he heard it. A sound. Low, deep. It rolled through the emptiness, not from a direction but from everywhere at once. A roar. It did not carry anger. It did not carry threats. It carried weights. Ancient, endless. Kale's awareness sharpened. Another roar answered. Then another. Then more. They layered over one another, forming a chorus that shook the silence apart. Not chaotic, not wild. Each voice distinct yet woven together with purpose. Many. There were many. The heat surged. No longer distant, no longer faint. It wrapped around him, through him, igniting something buried deep within his being. And with it came light. Not blindings, not overwhelmings, but inevitable. The darkness receded. The void fractured. Reality returned in pieces. The scent of smoke reached him first. Not the choking, suffocating smoke of burning wood or flesh, but something cleaner, sharper, like air heated until it shimmered. Then came sound. The crackle of flame. The deep, rhythmic pulse of something vast breathing. And beneath it, movement. Heavy, measured, power contained rather than unleashed. Kale's body responded before his mind caught up. Air rushed into his lungs. His chest expanded sharply, dragging him back into himself with a force that bordered on pain, but there was no pain. Only sensation. Only awareness. His eyes opened. Light greeted him. Not harsh, not blinding, but warm golden hues dancing across his vision. For a moment, everything was blurred, indistinct, shapes moving within brightness. He blinked. Once, twice. The world sharpened. He lay on stone. But not the cold, dead stone of Ashfall's surface. This was different. It glowed faintly beneath him, veins of light running through it like molten metal frozen in motion. Heat radiated upward, not enough to burn, but enough to be felt, steady, constant, alive. Kale drew in another breath. Reflexively, his hand moved. To his chest. To the place where the blade had entered. Where it had ended him. His fingers met nothing. No wound. No blood. Only skin. Smooth. Unbroken. He pressed harder as if expecting pain to follow. It did not. His gaze dropped. His armor was still there, torn, split where the blade had pierced it, darkened where blood had soaked into the fabric, but beneath it. Golden threads of light wrapped around his torso, weaving across his skin in intricate patterns. They pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat made visible, shifting and flowing with a life of their own. Not bandages. Not magic, he recognized. Something else. He inhaled sharply. And for the first time, there was no weakness. No heaviness dragging at his limbs. No trembling. He felt whole. Stronger than whole. Kale pushed himself upright. The motion was smooth, effortless, his body responding without resistance. He sat, then rose to his feet in a single, fluid movement. And then, he saw them. They surrounded him. Not 5, not 10, dozens, dragons. The word barely held meaning compared to what stood before him. They were vast, far beyond the size of the hatchling he had seen, beyond anything described in stories told by men. Their bodies were layered in scales that caught the light in impossible ways, reflecting colors that shifted with every subtle movement. Gold, crimson, obsidian, emerald, each one different, each one ancient. Their forms filled the space around him, yet there was no sense of crowding. The air itself seemed to expand to accommodate them, bending to their presence rather than resisting it. Eyes fixed upon him. Not one or two. All of them. Burning. Watching. Judging. Kale did not reach for his sword. It was still at his side. He could feel its weight, familiar, grounding. But there was no point. If they wished him dead, he would not even have the time to draw it. So he stood, still, waiting. One moved. It stepped forward, its massive form shifting with a grace that defied its size. Each motion was deliberate, controlled, as if it carried a weight beyond the physical. Its scales were gold. Not pale like the hatchling, but deep and radiant like metal fresh from the forge. Light seemed to gather around it, bending toward it, drawn as if by gravity. It lowered its head. The distance between them closed, not physically but in presence. The air grew heavier, charged with something that pressed against Kale's senses. When it spoke, the world seemed to listen. You stood. The voice was not sound alone. It vibrated through him, through the stone beneath his feet, through the air itself. It was vast, layered, carrying echoes of something far older than language. When all others fled, Kale swallowed. The weight of the gaze of all their gazes pressed against him, testing, measuring. He forced himself upright, meeting the dragon's eyes. It was just a child, he said. His voice felt small in comparison. But he did not look away. For a moment there was silence. Then, a rumble spread through the gathering. Low, deep. It rolled outward, passing from one dragon to another, a resonance that built rather than broke. Kale tensed, waiting for angers, for rejection. For the moment they decided he had spoken wrongly. But it did not come. This was not fury. It was something else. Approval. The golden dragon lowered its head further, bringing its gaze level with Kale's. That child, it said, is of our blood. The words carried weight. Not pride, not boast, truth, of our future. Movement stirred behind the great forms. Kale's attention shifted, and he saw it. The hatchling. It stepped forward hesitantly at first, weaving between the towering bodies of its kin. Its scales no longer dulled by ash and injury, but bright, radiant in a softer way than the elders, but unmistakably alive. Its wing, whole. The torn membrane was gone, replaced by smooth, unbroken structure. It flexed slightly, testing itself, as if still remembering the pain that had once been there. It approached him. Slowly, cautiously. Kale did not move. The hatchling reached him, its head lifting. For a brief moment it paused, studying him, as if confirming something only it could understand. Then it pressed its head against his hand. Warm, solid, alive. Kale exhaled, a breath he had not realized he was holding. That's good, he said quietly. The words felt insufficient. But they were all he had. The dragons shifted, forming a wider circle around them, not closing in. Encircling. Containing. You took 5 blades, another voice said. This one was deeper, harsher, like stone grinding against stone. Kale turned slightly, his gaze falling on a dragon of darker hue, its scales near black, edged with faint lines of red that glowed like cracks in cooling magma. Any one of them would have ended a human life. Kale glanced down at himself again. At the unbroken skin. The fatting light. I guess I'm hard to kill, he said. A flicker of something, almost humor, touched the edges of his tone. The golden dragon's gaze did not change. No, it said. The words settled heavily. You were chosen not to die. Kale stilled. The heat in the air shifted. Not rising. Focusing. What does that mean, he asked. But even as the words left his mouth, part of him already knew. The dragons moved. Not stepping. Not walking. But aligning. Their forms adjusted, forming a pattern that Kale could not fully comprehend yet felt instinctively. A shape older than thought, older than memory. The air ignited, not in flame, in presence. Light rose around them. Gold, crimson, black, each color distinct, yet flowing into one another, weaving together into something greater. Kale felt it touch him, not as heat against skin, but as something deeper. It seeped into him, through him, bypassing flesh and bone, reaching into places he did not have names for. His breath caught. "What are you doing?" he asked. The answer came not just from the golden dragon, but from all of them. "Repaying a debt." The words resonated. Final, absolute. The flames surged, and Kale Varin felt them claim him. The man of 5 flames. When Kale Varin stood again, the world was not the same. Or perhaps, he was not. The difference was subtle at first. A quiet shift, almost too small to name yet impossible to ignore once noticed. It settled into him not as a sudden transformation but as a realization, something that had already happened, something that had already taken root. The stone beneath his feet glowed faintly, veins of molten light pulsing like a living heartbeat. He could feel it. Not just the warmth, the movement, the slow, steady flow of heat through the rock like blood through veins. It was distant, buried deep beneath layers of hardened ash and cooled fire, but it was there. And somehow, he knew it. Not as an observation, as a fact. His breath came slow, steady, controlled, but deeper than before. Each inhale carried more than air. It carried sensation. The faint scent of smoke, of scorched earth, of something ancient and powerful that lingered in every corner of this place. Every detail stood out. Every flicker of light. Every shift of shadow. Every subtle movement in the vast, towering forms around him. The dragons. They had not moved. Not since the flames had receded. They watched him. Silently. Endlessly. Kale lowered his gaze. His hands. They looked the same. Scarred. Worn. Humans. But as he flexed his fingers, something stirred beneath the surface. A faint glow traced along the lines of his skin, thin, fleeting like embers carried by a dying breeze. Then it was gone. He turned his hand slightly, studying it, as if expecting the light to return. It did not, but he could still feel it. There, waiting. "What did you do to me?" he asked. His voice carried further than he expected, not louder but clearer. It did not fade into the vastness of the chamber, it held as if the space itself acknowledged it. The golden dragon shifted. Not much, but enough. Its massive form leaned forward, scales catching the ambient glow, reflecting it in shifting patterns of molten light. Its eyes, vast, ancient, remained fixed on him. "You carry our gift," it said. The words rolled through the space, not echoing but resonating, settling into the very air. 5 flames for 5 wounds. Kale stilled. His mind went back. To the hollow. To the fight. The first blade. The second. The third. The fourth. The fifth. Each one clear. Each one final. Each one a bond, the dragon continued. Kale frowned slightly, the word catching on something unfamiliar. "Bond," he repeated. The hatchling chirped. The small sound cut through the weight of the moment with surprising ease. Kale glanced down as it circled him, its movements light, almost playful now. Gone was the desperation, the fear, in its place. Energy. Curiosity. Life. It brushed against his leg, then leapt lightly onto a nearby stone, its wings flexing in small, testing motions. Whole. Completely whole. Kale's gaze lingered on it for a moment. Then returned to the dragons. "For each blade you endured," the golden dragon said, a guardian answered. The air shifted. Subtle, almost imperceptible. But Kale felt it. "You are no longer alone, humans." Something moved behind him. Not sound. Not exactly. Presence. Kale turned. Slowly. And saw them. At first they were only shapes, flickers of light that hovered at the edge of perception. Heat shimmered in the air, distorting the space behind him, bending it into something uncertain. Then, they took form. 5 figures, each distinct, each unmistakable. Dragons, but not like the ones before him. These were not flesh and scale. They were made of flames. Living fire shaped into draconic forms, their bodies composed of shifting light and heat. They were not solid, yet they were not intangible. Their presence was real, anchored to him in a way he could not fully understand. The first burned gold. Bright, radiant. Its form sleek and fluid, its movement smooth, controlled. It hovered slightly above the ground, wings folding and unfolding in slow, measured motions. The second was crimson. Deep, intense. Its flame moved differently, faster, sharper, flickering at the edges like a blade drawn through air. Its eyes burned brighter, more focused. The third was black, or something close to it. Not absence but density, a fire so hot it seemed to consume its own light. Its form was heavier, more grounded, coiled strength held in stillness. The fourth shimmered in silver white. Cold fire. Not freezing, but sharp, precise, like the edge of something honed beyond reason. Its movements were minimal, efficient. The fifth was different. It flickered between hues gold, red, black, white, never settling, always shifting. Its form was less defined, as if it existed slightly out of phase with the others. Together, they formed a circle behind him. Watching, waiting, protecting, Kale stared. His mind struggled to catch up, to assign meaning to what he was seeing. Guardians, he murmured. The word felt inadequate. Too small. Call, the golden dragon said, and they will answer. Kale's gaze remained fixed on the 5 forms. He felt them, not as separate beings, as extensions, as something connected to him, bound through something deeper than command or control. Stand, the dragon continued, and they will stand with you. The Crimson Guardian shifted, its wings flaring briefly, the air around it rippling with heat. Fall. The word lingered. Unfinished. Kale exhaled slowly. They won't let me, he said. The realization came not as arrogance, but as certainty. A low rumble spread through the gathered dragons. Approval. Again, the golden dragon straightened. Its wings moved. Slow, deliberate. The motion alone shifted the air, sending waves of pressure outward. The ground beneath Kale's feet seemed to respond, the faint glow intensifying for a brief moment. From this day, the dragon said, you are not merely a man. The words settled heavily. Final, irrevocable. The flames behind Kale surged. Not outward, inward. They moved closer, tightening their circle, their forms aligning with his own. You are the one who stood for our future. The declaration echoed, not in sound but in meaning. It spread through the space, through the dragons, through the stone itself. Through him. The hatchling chirped again, louder this time. Without warning, it leapt. Kale barely had time to react before it landed on his shoulder, its small claws gripping securely without pain. Its weight was light, but real. It settled there easily, as if it belonged. As if it had always belonged. Kale turned his head slightly, catching a glimpse of it in his peripheral vision. It tilted its head, meeting his gaze, its eyes bright. Trusting, unquestioning. He looked forward again. Beyond the dragons. Beyond the chamber. Beyond the place where he had died. The valley awaited. Ashful. The place where everything had ended. And begun again. He took a step. The movement felt different. The ground responded. Subtly, the heat beneath the stone shifted, aligning with his presence as if acknowledging him. The guardians moved with him. Not stepping, flowing, remaining just behind, just out of reach, but always there. He could feel them. Constant, unyielding. He clenched his hand. The fire answered. It flared beneath his skin, visible now for a brief moment, lines of light tracing across his fingers, his palm, then fading again. But the sensation remained. Power, not borrowed, not forced. His. A faint smile formed. Small, but real. All right, he said. The word carried. Not as a challenge, As acceptance. Let's see what 5 dragons and 1 stubborn human can do. The guardians responded. Not with words. With sound. 5 roars. Each distinct. Each powerful. They rose together, merging into a single resonant force that shook the chamber, the valley, the sky beyond. The dragons answered. Dozens of voices joined, ancient and vast, their combined roar tearing through the silence that had claimed Ashfall for centuries. The air trembled. The ground shifted. The sky itself seemed to react. Far above, beyond stone and ash, beyond the broken remnants of what had once been, clouds parted. Light broke through. For the first time in longer than any man could remember, something stirred within the valley. Not death, not decay, something else, something alive. Kale stood at the threshold, between what had been and what would come. Behind him, power, ancient, unyielding, bound to him, with him, before him, a world that had forgotten, a world that had feared, a world that would soon remember. He took another step, then another. The hatchling shifted on his shoulder, letting out a small, eager sound. The guardians followed, and for the first time in centuries, the Age of Dragons did not rise in fire and destruction. It rose with a man who had chosen not to run.